Whee! In the past decade, we are bombarded with a couple of superhero movies every year. You can argue that all started in 1998 and Blade. We live in the age where comic book heroes can be brought up to the big screen in all of their glory. Some are more successful and loved than others. What about games based on superheroes? Actually, there are a lot of good ones. The most notable games in the last 10 years are Batman Arkham series. There are others like The Incredible Hulk, Ultimate Destruction, Marvel, Ultimate Alliance, Deadpool, The Punisher, various LEGO games, and so on. It's highly entertaining to drop on someone from above with Batman, or beat the crap out of bad guys, or traverse the city with Hulk and smash everything, including destroying buildings, or punish people. Among all of the superheroes, there is one that I think got the best treatment: Spider-Man. After the 3D graphics started to become the next big thing, he got 11 games, and this is on the AAA releases. If you count the games before the 3D era and spin-offs, mobile games, etc., the number gets bigger and bigger. I grew up with the Spider-Man cartoon from 1994, and I even watched Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I enjoyed that a lot, beats by a little the Hulk. But there is a problem when it comes to Spider-Man games on PC. They either are dumbed down or not so good ports, but mostly hard to find at all. It's quite sad actually. The only way to enjoy some of those games on PC is to pirate them. I'm gonna pause here for a second. I don't endorse pirating games, especially when it comes to indie games. Pirating, or even worse, buying a key from a dodgy site, is killing the small developers. We all done it. Now back on track. Web of Shadows, Shattered Dimensions, The Amazing Spider-Man. All lost for PC players. Fortunately, I managed to secure a physical copy of the Ultimate Spider-Man. While this is definitely not the best Spider game, I was happy to revisit it. It's like seeing an old friend, and like that friend, he has flaws, but you still like him. The story starts with short introduction how Peter becomes Spider-Man. Everyone knows how it happens, and thankfully he doesn't waste time. After that he meets his childhood friend and explains to the viewer that their fathers were researching a cure for cancer. They developed the Venom suit with the hope of finding the cure. After they were deceived by Trask Industries, both of them lost ownership of the product and both of their fathers died in a plane crash. The suit is their inheritance. After finding all this, Spider-Man decides to steal their legacy, but he accidentally spills some of it on him and creates the Dark Suit. This enhances his ability to a whole new level, but it didn't last long. Soon the suit drains him. After that, Eddie finds out about Peter's secret identity and what he did and takes the rest of the suit for him. And they clash. By the way, the video you're seeing is not corrupted. This is how it's in game. I don't know why, I don't remember experiencing it the first time I've played it. Probably 60% of the cutscenes are like that. Now back on track. And they clash.
To stop him. That means I have to put him down. Fast.
Lie on the ground with your hands over your head. Both of you on the ground. The hell is that?
3 months after the fight and the presumable death, I guess, of Venom, Peter resumed his normal life. And from here the story goes between Peter and his attempts to save Eddie and people trying to get Eddie for his suit. Along the way you will meet and fight a lot of different hero sentinels. The story is alright, nothing too exciting, but the problem is not so much of the story, but some of the characters. I am not too familiar with all the comics and TV shows about Spider-Man, and I'm introduced to characters which I see for the first time. I don't know who they are. This is what bugs me. It's not very friendly to a newcomer to the Spider-Man world. You can Google them, but my point still stands. Time to have some fun. The reason why I want to play the aforementioned Spider games, and this one again, is also one of the reasons why I like Spider-Man as a character. The swinging. Free roaming in the city. When you get the momentum right, it's an awesome feeling. And it's not only the swinging. When you combine it with double jump, web pulling, you can traverse the city in very high speed. It's pure joy. Traversing the city is one part of the gameplay. The other is fighting. And here lies my main issue with the game. No, it's not bad, it's actually good, albeit little simpler. Let's back a little bit. I'll be back to the combat in a second. It's an open world game, so what is the filler between the story missions? Not much really. There are 4 types of side missions. Races, going through big balls as fast as you can, city events, which you can beat up bad guys, save a citizen, or bank on top of a moving car filled with bad guys while avoiding being shot, and after that again, beat them. And the last one is combat tour. You probably guessed it. It's beating up bad guys, but in a couple of places. Every single one of these awards you with medal. Even if you don't want to do them, there is no choice. To unlock the story missions, you have to do a certain amount of those 4 types. There are also races with Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four, but they are different type of races. Thankfully the game don't ask from you to do too much of the side missions. Actually, at one point I realized I've done plenty, so after each story mission, the next was unlocked, and probably it's because the side missions don't last too long. You just do them along the way to your next story mission. The most fun from those to me was the combat tours. It's simple, beat the crap out of everyone. And now back to the combat. You have punch and you have kick. You can mix and match, and according to the game, if you do it, you do more damage. Also you have your web. Shoot the web to either incapacitate someone for a few seconds, or swing and throw him, or by pressing punch and kick do a different kind of attack. You can even hang someone upside down on a street lamp. Combat gets interesting when you are in a back alleys or near a building surrounded by enemies. Then you start fighting, and when you combine everything I described and constantly pressing different directions, you can see how Spider-Man jumps from one enemy to the other, passes from wall, throwing them left and right. It's awesome. Sound a bit familiar? It actually feels a bit like Batman Arkham games, 3 years before the first of the series. But as I mentioned, my biggest problem lies here. There is not enough combat in the game. It may be simplistic, but for sure is entertaining. Spider-Man bouncing all over the place in high speeds surely is very fun. To avoid taking damage, you can see on Spider-Man's head his Spidey sense, represented as flames, I guess. The only thing you can do in this case is to jump. The whole combat feels dated and a little bit clunky, especially the lack of dodge move or some protective mechanic or something, but nevertheless fun. Even without a dodge move, you can easily get back into action by pressing kick or punch button while in the air. Then Spider-Man will bomb dive the enemy 2 times. This is even useful while you're swinging around. If you're flying and you pass close to an enemy, Spider-Man will lock onto someone and crack his skull. In this game, you don't kill people. When you knock them out, you have to subdue them with the web before they get back on their feet. Also, with finishing certain story missions, you unlock first 4, then 5 hit combo. There is no upgrades, no experience points, it's just a simple 3D beat 'em up. One of the coolest things is that the story lets you play with Venom, or when you beat the story, you can switch at will, but it turns the game into a survival mode. He doesn't have the web swing, but he can jump really high. It almost feels like you are controlling the Hulk, but without all the moves. Instead of kicking, Venom have tentacle attack, which may do less damage, but is the most useful move. It keeps the enemy far away from you and interrupts some of their attacks. When you grab someone, you can break his back. Actually feels quite brutal. The first time you get control of Venom, you beat the crap out of the Wolverine in a bar. And my favorite boss battle was with him. Spider-Man is knocked out in the middle of Times Square and you have to protect him from Electro because Venom wants to kill him, and you do this by getting close and personal. After Electro gets supercharged, you have to avoid his lightnings while looking for a car to throw at him and trying to destroy neon signs so he won't restore his health. Actually, the game is all about boss battles. Almost every single story mission has the same structure. Chase a villain in the city, then beat him. Rinse and repeat. The first 1 or 2 chases can be fun, but after that they start to get really repetitive. Bosses themselves are a mixed bag, and okay at best. Avoid their attacks until they do something that weakens them, and maybe punch/kick him in the best scenario. Some you can only damage while you jump attack. At least there is a lot of variety in terms of characters. But as I said before, the combat is not very deep. As Spider-Man, you will fight Venom a couple of times. The last one is really bad. It's stupidly boring and easy. You have to protect a helicopter from Venom. Only way to do damage on Venom is when he pushes the helicopter, and the fight is extremely boring and easy, especially when you figure out how you can bait him to come back and hit the helicopter. There is one boss battle that's interesting. You fight with Venom the Beehive. I googled his name because, as I said, the game expects you to be familiar with all the characters. He has two faces and they are interesting, but when you fight him with Spider-Man, it's dull. He's not challenging, he's just boring. He flies around, then stops, shoots lasers, you jump and kick him. That's it. At one point of the story you will fight Carnage as Venom. You both do so much damage around you. It's awesome, but it's very easy to win when you know that Venom's tentacle interrupts Carnage attacks. In terms of variety of bosses and regular enemies, it's alright. Regular enemies are either with bare hands, knife, gun, electro gun or flamethrower. Actually, the guys with the flamethrowers are kinda dangerous. You will see the spidey sense only if someone is trying to shoot you. Controls are perfect. They are responsive all the time. There are times I think the web pool should latch onto something, but it doesn't, and the opposite also happens. The camera can struggle sometimes, especially on some of the bosses. It's hard to keep up with what's going on the screen, but it's not that bad. I never died because of the camera. I played it with a controller, but also the game is playable with mouse and keyboard. The camera gets a little bit jerky when you try to see up and down with the mouse. There are also neat little touches, like when you swing near a wall, Spider-Man will run on the wall. The city feels a little bit empty, it's obvious why. It doesn't render the whole city and the people. You can see in the distance the basic shape of the building without the textures. I think the problem with the textures and cutscenes comes from compatibility with Windows 7. There is also here and there some flickering textures. I don't remember doing this on XP. When you're near a ground, you can see the people and cars, and the city starts to feel a little bit more alive. While the game doesn't have high fidelity graphics, thanks to the cel shading art style, it still looks pleasant. Everything is stylized. When the cutscenes work, they are great. They are presented as a comic book panels and characters jump in and out from the panels. Even the clouds are stylized. The only bizarre thing is the character hands. They are big, out of proportions. Maybe the depth were true to the source material, but still looks weird. The audio is a mixed bag. While the voice acting is spot on and the music is great, there are some lines you can't hear what the voice actors are saying. Also, I had the feeling that some of the dialogue was compressed too much. It's like crackling a little bit. The real star is the soundtrack. It's really good. Most of the music is tense, others are quirky beats that fit really good with the character of Peter Parker / Spider-Man. He is always wisecracking and got some good one-liners, but sometimes this gets his ass handed to him. He is a kid with superpowers and the writing really shows it up. But it really starts to get annoying when him, or especially the villain, start repeating their lines over and over and over and over and over and over again. Fail a chase a couple of times and it will get under your skin. This is the product of its time. There are certainly better games. The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction came an year earlier and it's a ton of fun. And it has its fair share of problems, broken cutscenes, repetitive mission design of the main story, between 3-5 hours campaign with no replayability, not much variety in the side missions. It may be strange to you, but I really enjoy my time revisiting the game. When things click, it's fun. The thing is, for everything I like, there is something that drags it back. The combat may be simplistic, but it's really fun to fight a couple of thugs and mob the streets with them. And soaring through the skies and between buildings holds up really well. It's so fun. The chases can be fun and offer some thrills. Music is absolute blast to listen. On PC, this is one of the games that still can be found relatively cheap. The following Spider-Man games, Web of Shadows, Shattered Dimension, The Amazing Spider-Man, are way too expensive. The solution is one: if you still keep your consoles, buy the games for them. PC sadly is not an option unless you are willing to spend way too much money. By the looks of it, Web of Shadows fixed my main problem, the combat. It looks actually quite good and more involved, but the game has its fair share of problems. I was quite happy with revisiting the game. How many games besides the Spider-Man ones can offer swinging with such a grace? Wait a minute, I think I found one or two.
Thanks, but I had a fireball for lunch. Baby one nappy time. Is your head thicker than it used to be?